The Hatboro-Horsham School District community has always celebrated diversity, inclusion, and acceptance among its students, families, and staff. Over time, the school district's demographics has changed, presenting opportunities to revisit the way we educate our students. To meet the needs of changing demographics, the Hatboro-Horsham School District is initiating a comprehensive plan centered around cultural responsiveness and cultural proficiency throughout the school district.
Cultural proficiency is pretty much a mindset, and it is a way a person or an organization thinks about others and their cultures, how we use that to plan to address issues in diverse environments.
As the Hatboro-Horsham School District strives for cultural proficiency, there are 6 goals in place for education equity. Dr. Monica Taylor explains.
The first is having high achievement in student outcomes for all students. The second being having equitable access and inclusion for all of our students. The third, equitable treatment for all of our students. The fourth, an equitable opportunity to learn. The fifth, equitable resources, and finally, equitable shared accountability, because in essence, we are responsible to our community, and our community has spoken. When we launched that equity survey, we reviewed the data, and the data said it was time for us to pay attention to our goals and outcomes in this area.
According to the survey, only 34% of students at the secondary level believe that there is a high level of respect among peers.
A lot of people still use like the F word as an insult, or they'll say something is gay. And it's like, not to be like humorous, but it's like, that's like a 2006, 2007 thing when they had those commercials saying, oh, like gay is okay, don't use gay as an insult.
I'd say it's been fairly, not perfect, but not awful. There have been several altercations that I have had experienced within the building that I have had to take into my own hands because I'm not the type of person to take it to the next level if I can deal with it.
I don't want to say that everyone's accepting because the truth is that not everyone is. I've been fortunate enough and people are, I feel like, accepting of me, and I have friends and stuff, but I also know that there are people that don't feel accepted.
There's instances where it has happened and I've heard of it, but mainly, I feel that through my experiences, I've been accepted.
The survey also found that 49% of teachers say they have received adequate training to support all learners. To tackle that issue, a series of professional development workshops were deployed to the Hatboro-Horsham staff.
Families of English learners and also families whose primary language is not English.
Today's whole theme was educating the whole child, which meant that we really wanted to look at all areas when talking about students. So looking even beyond the surface, like trauma, anxiety, multicultural, and making sure that we were culturally competent in the things that we're doing for kids.
Teachers and staff found the workshops informative and spoke about the different ways they were enlightened.
I believe that we're evolving, that the school is starting to evolve and that we are working towards that everybody has a different story. I like that way of thinking about it.
I think our hope is that teachers will maximize their time learning in collaborative spaces and that they will ultimately depart with a knowledge and understanding of our goals around equity.
I work with their teachers, making sure that teachers know about these student situations, about their unique talents, about their language needs or academic needs, and try to help them feel more welcome in our school environments.
Another component to cultural competence is changing what is being taught in the curriculum. Hatboro-Horsham School District administrators discussed their plan for changes.
From my perspective as a curriculum director, I think that every child deserves to come into school and see themselves in the curriculum somewhere. So, you know, are the resources that we use reflective of the children in our schools?
Giving students more voice and more choice. And that's one of the things we talk about with deeper learning, is that the way to get students engaged is to give them voice and to give them choice. So every student doesn't have to read the same novel.
Changes in curriculum resources for enhancing cultural competence have already taken place in the school district. Keith Valley Middle School librarian Lisa Quinn explains. Teachers are also on board with implementing cultural competence in their classrooms across the district.
I always begin my classes acknowledging and celebrating diversity because it's important. And so I do something called Take 5 in the beginning of my classes, where I take 5 minutes or so where we acknowledge a person or an event and we celebrate it.
Students interviewed also had varied opinions on what is being taught in the classroom as it relates to their culture or experience.
Senior English is like the most, it lets you do whatever you want to do. So if I want to do something about Puerto Rico for like a bunch of my English projects, they could let me. But the other classes, they have like a fixed thing that they want you to do.
For like my history class or sometimes my English class, like they teach like different religions and like it's really enforced, and it's like having like my religion, it's kind of like hard to like dive into that. So I think that's just like, that's something I've had.
I would like to see LGBTQ history incorporated into not only American history but world history, because it is like the women's suffrage movement. We have had our own movement.
In terms of like subjects, like everything's good, but for history for me, it's always been kind of isolating because, you know, we learn the same thing over and over. Christopher Columbus and Europe did this, and it's not accurate, which obviously most people know, but it's kind of like, I would like to see more progression in that.
Culture makes a huge difference in our lives, and most people aren't taught about that. Even teachers. I went through teacher training, I'm teaching at Temple now, and very few courses are about how culture impacts learning. So my role is to make, or my hope is to make everybody understand that.
The steps for education equity are in place in the Hatboro-Horsham School District. So when will we know when the goals of this program are met?
Most times there is no end game. So in Singleton's book, he says we have to get comfortable that there's no end to this, but there is growth that can be measured. And as people learn and grow, they will be better, and they will decide when is it that we kind of stop.
This is ongoing work. It's not one and done. This is something that will grow as we grow, and we will develop our practices as we continue to improve as a school district.